Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about T.D. Jakes, and I saw a video that was about an hour and 6 minutes called The Mystery Revealed. Now, like all the other famous preachers, like everyone else who's talking about God, okay, except for me, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's key in this. You know them by the spirit that they're in. Are they in the spirit of the state? Are they obeying God through me? These are key questions. He's in the spirit of the masses of people who are deceivers. And I'll prove it definitively. So he uses the King James Version, which is, a version designed to confuse people. When you look at how the English was spoken back then, if you look at how it clashes with how people think nowadays, you see that that's clear here. So people who use that version are clearly up to no good. If there's any discrepancy they think is there between that and, say, the New International Version, why don't they just clear up that discrepancy instead of speaking in Old English like a babbling fool all the time, because they're from Babylon's mystery school and thinking. Very straightforward. He's obviously not persecuted, right? He doesn't have all the conditions I have, right? He's not fumed and poisoned all the time to the extreme. He doesn't have problems with hearing and seeing. He's not having his brain remotely hacked, what have you. He wears pink on stage, which is a big no-no. Okay, if you're wearing pink because they're keeping from other clothing, you're supposed to say that. You're not supposed to just wear pink because that points to homosexuality and feminism, which are contrary to the sound doctrine of God. He pretends to point the way while he's not pointing to me. Now, he cites 1 Timothy 3, verses 15 and 16 as like the main scriptures he uses in this video. In his video, that is. And in that chapter, it talks about how deacons and overseers and people of the church, it's funny they're called overseers, right, are supposed to behave. And that includes women, right? All these people aren't supposed to be pursuing ill-gotten gains. The church is pursuing ill-gotten gains in so many different ways. They're pursuing people's money to put it for the state's agenda, the CIA, what have you, the governing class. They're pursuing ill-gotten gains in regards to trying to derive pleasure or something from marrying people in marriages that are against the will of God, and so on and so forth. In so many ways, they're cheating me out of my right to lead. They're trying to put themselves in the spotlight, what have you. So they're not respectable. Their women aren't respectable as a result, right? They've yoked themselves to sinners. By their actions, they're malicious talkers, okay? They don't have the sound temper from God. They might be calm at times or seem calm, but their brains are not at peace because they're not in the Spirit of God. Therefore, they're temperate in their own ways. It's one thing to be sabotaged and to be yelling and stumbling on your words like I often do because I'm sabotaged while doing God's work in God's Spirit. It's another thing to seem calm because you're in the military or the police or using psychology in the church or you're in a gang and you're having your way or whatever. Okay? Or you're just one of many other types of sheep or wolves in sheep's clothes, right? Rather, who are on the broad path to destruction. He's allowed to have lots of followers by the state, not by God, mind you, because he's on the broad path to destruction. So the females aren't worthy of respect. Everyone outside the divine order isn't, but it specifically brings up women in this chapter. And he's not conducting himself in a way that's respectful. At the end of the video, he acts like a complete clown. Okay, I don't hear the way he's talking, but the way he's acting, at first I thought he was among the most respectable, though not respectable, right, because they don't obey God through me, of the preachers that we see. But in the end of the video, he cancels all that out and comes in at average or something because he acts like a complete clown, doing something similar to the Masonic camel hump dance or something. Just a complete clown, just a fool like the Freemason, just an idiot. Okay, and that has to be said, because when you mock God, can you then turn around and say, hey, I know I'm mocking God, but ... No. You're supposed to be insulted for insulting God, and you're going to be thrown into hell. Now, it's sad because he seems like a kind of nice guy. He says things that are important. He seems to mean them, but I don't hear that way he's saying it. I just see the way he's saying it. And I see the annotations because of my conditions, because I'm persecuted. He's not. He doesn't have that problem because he's not doing God's will. So 1 Timothy 3:15. It's the New International Version. It's nearly identical. There's no significant difference between this and the King James Version in 1 Timothy 3:15 and 1 Timothy 3:16, the two main scriptures he uses. It says, "If I am delayed, you will know how people ought to conduct themselves in God's household, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and the foundation of truth." He points out something that I agree with, that the people who actually follow God, not his followers, not him, are God's household. They're in the household of Lucifer, the devil. The next verse says, "Beyond all question, the mysteries from which true godliness springs is great. He appeared in the flesh, was vindicated by the Spirit or in the Spirit, was seen by angels, was preached among nations, was believed in the world, was taken up in glory." So what does it mean when it says he appeared in the flesh? This is something that he confuses, everyone else is confusing. So God is the source of martial art power, right? Life is a martial art test. Monotheistic, not Buddhist, not Hindu, not someone claiming to be monotheistic. Monotheistic martial art test. Mankind started with, in a primitive state. He was started in a primitive state, had a stick, spears, went hunting, went fishing, fighting with each other, dodging dangerous animals, leopards, lions, tigers, depending on where he was, snakes, sharks, hippos, crocodiles, all kinds of dangerous animals that require thinking. So he's moving in a spirit, has to use his mind, has a soul, has a body, mind, body, soul, spirit. And these are martial art ways, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years. Long before the gun. Technology is just technology. You think God meant for your brain to be hooked to a machine? Long before technology, martial arts. Conan the Barbarian wasn't the master martial arts. He swings his sword, I dodge, I go in there, I cut off his legs, maybe I start with his arm, maybe I cut off his head, maybe I stab him up, martial arts. Mind, body, soul, spirit, surgical strikes, sharp sword of Scripture. Sharp, double-edged sword of Scripture. Coming out of his mouth, Revelation 19, still a sharp, double-edged sword of Scripture. Not a gun. Not a bomb. Not a tank. Compared to a sharp, double-edged sword of Scripture, timeless martial arts comparison. The Lord is the warrior. The Lord is his name. He who sees the Father sees the Son. God is the same forever. Timeless martial arts comparison. So appeared in the flesh. The Spirit of God being drawn into the flesh by the top martial artist. But in the case of being born, generations of righteousness in my father's patriarchal line, there was women along the way helping him out, what have you, marrying him, what have you, giving birth. Righteousness brought into this world. Over time, building, the wise builder, building on righteousness, wisdom, justice, monotheistic martial art principles. Compare the top martial arts me to these worms hiding from a debate, nerds, scientists, bodybuilders, military people, police, gang members, average person working at, McDonald's or something. Compare. Who is like him? Me, not them. Martial arts. Drawn into the flesh. The word is like the word sword. And the word and sword are like the word draws the sword, draws the martial spirit. Martial is marital scrambled night, Christ and the bridegroom. And if they make this sound funny, you know for sure that they're acting like a female dog because they are. Because I'm a man and there's some kind of punk that won't even allow me to have fair representation. That's not something that someone with true power would do. That's not something that somebody who is of God would do. And the people who claim to be of God, they wouldn't seek to benefit from that. They would not. What is whispered in the ear will be declared from the rooftops. Do not be afraid of them. Tell them about the great deeds of the top martial arts ever possible. They shrink to fit, and wait until I'm gone is a coward move that reflects their coward genes. And you all know that. Making it so I sound corny just overkills that the culture that I'm in is full of cowards. The governing class, cowards. The military, running sops on me, cowards. Why don't they prefer shooting everyone around them to making fun of God by changing the voice of his son? Why don't they prefer that? Okay, so I'm probably going to include that part where I raised my voice and I said, why don't they prefer that? They might make it sound funny. Let's wrap this up here. You can imagine that a righteous person is mad at these liars, these fakers. They're not real men. They're not real warriors. They're not really people of God. And because they're mocking God on top of that and persecuting me instead of working around me, God hates them and their families and their offspring with all of his being. And you should know that. He's merely testing them, seeing what they're doing, and then God and I are going to put them into the appropriate place for eternal punishment. And even if you are an atheist, once you hear that, you know that that's what they deserve. You know that when you look at the situation here and the fact that God is the essence of universal pinpoint and moral precision, that it is a fate far worse than death to be them and to be anyone who's cheating me out of my right to lead. That quickly, no matter how you slice it. The atheist, the agnostic, and the monotheistic either agree on that or they're idiots. That's simple. So he says things in a way that conceals what it means for Christ to be formed in them. How do you have God formed in you? By cheating me out of my right to lead, the top martial arts ever possible, by making me your enemy, by cheating me out of my right to lead? No. That's rebellion and guilt formed in you. That's wickedness. That's injustice. That's how you form being a punk, a female dog, a worm, a viper, a wolf. Especially when you call what is in you Christ. When I despise with all my being what is in you. Your spirit is some sissy spirit, like your fake depictions of Jesus, like El and Baal. Look at the depictions of them. Complete sick joke. Weird, weirdos, sickos, effeminate, cowardly people. When it comes to manning up, you think when someone mans up for God, they look like a homosexual, like your depictions of Jesus? They do not. He argues that holiness is when you don't think of sin and foolishness, while he is thinking with sin and foolishness in a Luciferian spirit. He's not pointing the way to me, thus there's no point in what he's saying. He talks about how God is said to be manifested in the flesh. What, that sissy depiction of Jesus, which is similar to the spirit that you're in? It's one thing to know and to say that spirit, that depiction of Jesus that they use, those depictions are false. There's nothing to be in the same spirit as that depiction, run by the same governing class and their offspring. And to point to that and say that's fake. Well, you're fake too because you're following that spirit. That is an animation. Animus meaning spirit. It's a depiction of the spirit that you're in. That's why you're wearing pink and that thing looks like a pink fake idol. It's a pink fake idol in its own way. He brings up that incarnation has the word car in it, which he says means meat. Okay? So he's in the spirit of vipers. And, big snakes often eat children, they eat people, they eat human beings. So to him, if you read between the lines and look at his actions, what Christ is someone who's drawing on the Spirit of God so that the world can consume his flesh and laugh and say that they magically consume God. That's part of why these people say that Christ is God. But it's semantics. In a sense, I am God because I represent God. But I'm not God. My soul is separate. I bring in the Spirit of God and God speaks through me and I'm his son. That's different if someone was obeying God through me. They're a different point. First it comes from God through me, then to them. So God speaking through me is greater than God speaking through any other person that ever lived and ever will live. And God speaking directly to me is greater than God speaking through me. That distinction is key. And other people aren't talking to God because not in the same way because they're in rebellion. And it says even the prayers, and I agree with the Bible when it says that even the prayers of the wicked are detestable, the kindness acts of the cruel are wicked, and so on and so forth. Okay. So he says things that are disturbing. Brace yourself. It's very disturbing. Some of the things they say, they like to mock God and they try to get you to think a certain way, then they act foolish. The same thing these PSYOP people do. Once I'm doing things like this, they do disgusting and foolish things to try to insult God. So bear with me. So I'm going to say some words to try to bring you back to, this earth for a second. Because when I talk in a way, your mind kind of goes up to the heavens. Okay, now keep in mind, God cannot be attacked by people making funny noises while you're trying to be holy. but for good measure, I'm going to do this out of respect for God. It's unnecessary, it's an overkill, but I'm going to do it nonetheless. So the wall, the door, the streets, okay, a regular sweater. Think a regular sweater. Think things of this world, trees, what have you. Think a dog. Now, he says that the flesh includes poop. The word he uses is poop. Okay? Now, so think of the English royals in the bathroom. Think of the Jews who think that they should cheat me in the bathroom. Think of these worms. Now, they say that when God's Spirit comes among, that he dwells among the flesh, and also the word that he used, that P word, right? You know, excrement. So they're basically saying that God came to dwell with us among us and also the excrement to try to save us. But he's not saying that to try to glorify God. He's saying that to try to take away from God. That's overkill by how the video ends with him dancing and shaking all weird and some guy having homosexual gestures and antics behind him. And he uses examples so he can bring out the homosexual. There's some witch-like female doing witch-like hand gestures. It's a very sick joke. Okay. So one thing he says that I agree with, he says that, you know, when you go to a church, that you go to commune with God. At least that's, you know, people who make the mistake of going to church, they're supposed to be trying to commune with God. He said not to see the pastor. That would be stupid. In saying so, he made it clear that it'd be stupid to go there to see the governing class in their spirit. Because he also says in the video that he's no different than the average person, than everyone else, right? Except for me, Christ, and that he's just as crazy and dumb as they are. And if you go there just to hear him talk and put on a show, that would be stupid. All you people from the opposition, you surely must now see that application is greater than presentation.